Can you tell me where?
Pessoal, estamos aqui em mais um vídeo do nosso canal. Antes de eu falar do que se trata o vídeo de hoje, eu peço para que vocês adotem o procedimento padrão de sempre. Abriu, deixou o like, ativem o sininho para as notificações. Se inscrevam no nosso canal caso vocês tenham parado nesse vídeo ou parado em vídeos anteriores e não são inscritos. E por último, mas não menos importante, nos siga nas nossas outras redes sociais. Progland no Facebook, Prog_Land no Instagram. Se você produz música, conhece alguém que produz música, por favor envie o seu material para resenha na nossa conta do Groover, Prog_Land. Por último, mas não menos importante, também acompanhe o nosso site, proglandmusica.wordpress.com. Por lá vocês vão encontrar resenhas exclusivas de lançamentos da música progressiva mundial e também entrevistas e outros conteúdos que vocês não vão encontrar aqui no nosso canal, tá bem? proglandmusica.wordpress.com. Também por último, claro, não deixem de também apoiar o canal através da nossa conta via Pix, progtalk2112@gmail.com. 5 a 10 reais mensais, valor ínfimo, para não ficar pesado para ninguém, ajuda a manter o nosso trabalho vivo. Introdutório feito, estamos aqui com a segunda da nossa série de pacotão inicial aqui de entrevistas internacionais no início desse ano para Progland. E a entrevista de hoje é muito especial com um músico que eu adoro e etc, que eu sou fã do trabalho que ele exerceu no grupo. Eu tô falando do Chicago e eu tô falando do Danny Seraphine, baterista, cofundador da banda. Desde 67, ficou no grupo até o início dos anos 90. Ele tá vindo para o Brasil agora, em março, com o grupo tributo dele de Chicago, California Transit Authority, né? Eles vão fazer uma série de datas aqui no Brasil. A gente vai colocar o link para vocês comprarem, etc, caso alguém queira, na nossa bio, na nossa descrição, na verdade. E o nosso papo foi excepcional, falamos sobre muitos aspectos da história do Chicago, conversamos muito sobre jazz fusion. O grupo é uma banda de jazz fusion, né, com muitas influências de rock, de música latina, de progressivo principalmente. A gente tocou nesse assunto durante a entrevista. Conversamos sobre as diferentes fases do grupo, influências dele na bateria, conversamos muito sobre bateristas de jazz e etc, né, sobre música brasileira. Ele tem uma forte conexão com a música brasileira, não só por ter amigos percussionistas e músicos brasileiros, como o Laudir de Oliveira, um dos mais famosos percussionistas que nós tivemos dentro do jazz e da MPB, ter sido integrante do Chicago durante 73 até 1980, 81, né? Então é uma entrevista fenomenal, uma entrevista muito bacana. O Danny foi muito gentil e eu espero que vocês curtam a entrevista. Deixem aí nos comentários o que vocês acham e etc, né? Eu tenho certeza que quem é fã do Chicago vai amar essa entrevista. Quem também não conhece muito da banda também vai curtir muito essa entrevista, que foi uma entrevista muito bacana. Tenha um bom vídeo e uma boa entrevista. Pessoal, estamos aqui em mais uma entrevista no nosso canal. Mais uma entrevista super especial aqui na série de entrevistas que a gente está fazendo esse ano, com um baterista lendário, músico lendário, Danny Seraphine, from Chicago. Thanks so much for your acceptance, for your good willing in doing this interview. We're going to cover some things about your past within the band and your present specifically now, because you're touring in Brazil now in March. And my first question is related to that. I had some questions for you and some subjects, especially about drumming, because I'm a frustrated drummer, so I can't lose this chance, right?
Okay, I'm ready.
You're coming to Brazil now in March with your tribute group, California Transit Authority. Mm-hmm. You founded the group in 2006, 2007, I think.
Yes.
And you left Chicago in 1990.
Yes.
And for what you have said previously, it wasn't an easy departure. It was quite abrupt departure. And leaving a band that you co-founded must be really difficult. It's like being thrown out of a high-speed car in the middle of the road, you know?
Yeah,
And
it's kind of felt like that, definitely.
yeah. And 16 years later, 17 years later, you returned to the musical career with that group, going back to that old repertoire of the band. And I would like to ask you, what led you to start this project after this 16, 17-year pause gap and find a reconnection to the past of the group?
Well, when I left the band, it wasn't on the best of circumstances, and it left me with a very kind of disillusioned, burnt out attitude towards the music business, playing drums, playing music, and so I wanted to try different things, producing, managing. I didn't want to play anymore, and so. But then I realized that I was always in life when you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah,
You always seem to be one step behind, two steps behind. So, I finally looked in the mirror and said, God put you here to play drums. That's you do that better than anything else you want to do, or do. Not that you shouldn't do other things, because it's part of life. It's part of the variety of life, and taking on new challenges. So I coincidentally, and at that time, I met up with the guitarist Mark Bonilla, and I met him through
yeah,
a mutual friend, and we jammed. And it was the first time I had that connection with the guitarist since the late Terry Kath, who was Chicago's guitarist, and and we looked at each other and said, "Hey, that was really special." And then
wow,
we decided to put a band together, and we decided, what, I love Chicago. My life was Chicago, so it's kind of been my pride and joy, the band and the accomplishment and the music and how the band was just, such a force, the original band was a force to be reckoned with. It was like a force of nature. It was so good.
yeah,
And and I've always, for many years, I had a strong tie to Brazil. I never played there, but I had some really great, Sergio Mendes was a really close friend of mine. We stole his percussionist, Laudir de Oliveira, because
yeah,
he was the most musical percussionist I'd ever played with. I played with Latin percussionists that always love playing with Latin percussionists, but Brazilian percussionists are different than Afro-Cuban, and it's a different style. It really blended well with my playing. So there was a strong tie to Brazil. So I'm really thrilled to be going to Brazil.
yeah,
I can't thank Maya enough, and you and the people of Brazil. I can't wait to get there and perform
yeah,
for the Brazilian audience, because I feel like I was a close friend of Ayrton Moreira, who's a famous,
yeah,
and Laudir de Oliveira, and then of course Sergio. So I had some strong relationships with Brazilians, and so I'm finally going to get to go to Brazil.
yeah.
But anyways,
And,
in answering your question, I know I went off on a tangent. I do that. I had a lot of coffee
no,
this morning, but
no, no sweat at all.
I really realized how much I missed playing music and playing drums, and there was a hole. Like, I realized there's a hole inside of me there's a void without me playing. So a few people talked me back into coming back and playing, and I thank them today, because I'm glad that I'm back. I love to play, and every time I play, I treat it like it's the last time I'm going to play. So when I'm done playing, I pretty much have left everything on the stage. You know.
Yeah. You have said about Laudir de Oliveira and another amazing Brazilian percussionists, and I would like to ask you, how was the greatest memory that you had in the studio or in a tour outfit
of playing with Laudir de Oliveira. You guys recorded a song, "Life Is What It Is," from him and Marcos Valle on
Marcos
Chicago
Valle, yeah.
30.
Marcos Valle was a close friend too. I loved him. He's a really
He's
obviously
amazing.
he wrote the famous Summer Samba, you know. It's such an iconic song. You know, I have many with Ledger. He was a joy to perform with and to play with, and he was so complimentary with my playing, and we played off one another. He was like a, you know, like Terry Kath and some of the other guys. He was like a musical soulmate. Besides being like a brother to me. He was an older brother because he was older than me, and he rest in peace. He's passed away, but he was a beauty. It was a joy to play with him. It was a joy, you know. And you know the Brazilian percussionists are um, they have their style is it's more universal. It's hard to explain,
Mhm.
but as a drummer, I mean, I love playing with. I have some Latin percussionists that I just love to play with, but playing with Laudir and or Ayrto or you know Paulinho de Costa, it's just a
Sim.
different. They bring a different musicality to the percussion instrument that inspires me. You know. So, anyways, you know,
Yeah.
Laudir was a pleasure. I don't have any one memory because you know we had many memories and we you know we constantly jammed together and we played really well together and you know I think he enjoyed playing with me as much as I enjoyed playing with him and it was a really you know we'd solo off when we soloed it was really exciting. He was just you know he was an amazing he was an amazing percussionist and a really beautiful person. I miss him. I miss him a lot, to be honest with you. You know, there's people in your life that, you know, have passed on and that you miss, and he's one of them. One of the main, you know, there's a few musical soulmate brothers, and he was one of them. So, yeah.
Definitely. He played so incredibly well, you know. I my favorite Chicago album today is Chicago 7.
Yeah, it's
And
one of my
that
favorites
album
too.
is
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
really that jazz flavored thing, and it has a lot of Latin flavor. And
Exactly.
for me, Laudir was the perfect guy from that period from Chicago, from the 70s to the early 80s. So he
Oh,
was
yeah, he
an
was.
amazing sideman for 1,000 albums here in Brazil. He played with anyone, with people like Tom Jobim, with plenty of person, you know,
Yeah,
amazing person.
I met quite a few really wonderful Brazilian artists, you know, Milton Nascimento and, you know,
Yeah,
who I thought
yeah.
was such a he's amazing. I mean, it's another legend, you know. So, yeah, I'm really looking forward to playing Brazil, you know,
Yeah.
and meeting you and you know, eating feijoada and you know,
Caipirinha, drinking caipirinha. I don't know if
yeah,
you drink alcohol at all,
yeah, I
but
do, I do. I don't drink a lot, but yes,
yeah.
I will definitely. What's it called again?
Caipirinha is the name. It's a sort
Okay,
of alcohol mixture with some juice of lemon. These mixtures, this
sounds
crazy
wonderful to
mixture,
me.
but
Yeah,
it's delicious. Believe me.
yeah.
I'd like to
Sure.
go back now, way back now, about your drumming early period. Specifically to your teens when you're starting taking drum lessons, private drum lessons. You mentioned in some interviews that Gene Krupa and Tony Williams were the ones who pushed you in a certain way to play the drums. And I recently discovered that during this time or a later period, set me straight if I'm wrong, that you had a jazz master as a teacher, which was Papa Joe Jones. You know,
Yeah,
I'm
I
I'm a
know.
frustrated drummer,
Oh, well, yeah,
so
he's
all these guys from jazz are really a treasure for me. You know, and he played with a seminal albums. People like Charlie Parker, Count Basie, these guys. You know, and was it what was it like learning from him? Which important tips you got from him as a drummer, you know, at all?
well, you know,
He's amazing.
Yeah, I totally agree. It was an honor to study with him. And I basically wanted to, he was such an amazing brush player. So I always liked playing brushes, but when I got with him, it just elevated me to another level on the brushes. But it also I mean, I could always swing. I always had to swing in my playing because of the Gene Krupa influence and the Buddy Rich and Tony Williams. But Papa Joe got inside my playing and he really lifted me. He lifted me to another level, and not only with brushes, but just the swing aspect of things, and the way he would play from, bass hand to feet, hi hat, using the hi hat instead of a double bass drum, to accent, with the left hand, and just Papa Joe, and he was many great drummers' favorite. Buddy Rich loved him. Louis Belson studied with him, so.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, he was, and I remember we have a there's an album of ours called Carnegie Hall. We played 8 days at Carnegie Hall and we sold it out. And I remember the most important show was the show that Joe Jones came to see me, and, he was, when after the show, he said, "Hey man, you sounded great. You were great." Just to hear him say that, and to, I know how nervous I was knowing that. See, the same night Leonard Bernstein came to see us play as Joe Jones, and everybody was up in arms because Leonard Bernstein was in the audience. But me, I was more nervous about Joe Jones,
Of course.
Papa Joe, because there is no, Papa Joe Jones is like, as far as swing and bebop, he's kind of like the Papa Joe Jones. He was the father, one of the fathers of it. And so having the privilege to study with him was something that'll always stay with me and always be grateful for. But because he was a wonderful person. I mean, I kind of got him towards the end of his life, and he wasn't. It was rough for him. As a lot of these guys, they didn't get compensated in their compensation that they made was not in line with their artistry and their talent. So, it was kind of tough, but it was just to get to know him and study with him. And because after our lessons, we'd go to the bar and I would drink with him. He would, I'd buy him whiskey or whatever, and we'd hang out and he'd tell me stories. And it was just, it was a wonderful experience. Not only just, learning his technique and his style, but his mindset and his philosophy was influential on me as he was.
Okay. Yeah. And that's the real thing of knowing your idols, is realizing that they are really uh, guy guys like humans, that these guys were not acting like a diva like behavior or whatever, real close to anyone.
Oh yeah, I remember one night when we were playing Madison Square Garden, and I brought Alvin Jones and his wife with me, and it was like, so
Oh,
Alvin was like,
that's
Danny,
really
I want to open for your band, and give me some of that big
oh.
money, and afterwards we went to a club and saw the Buddy Rich big band. So I had my two, Buddy Rich and Alvin Jones, like on either side of me, and it was like I couldn't believe it. It was like, I mean, it was just a night it was another night I'll never forget. Getting to know Alvin, and I got to know a lot of the New York cats because we go to New York, and I'd go to the Blue Note or the Village Vanguard and get and see them play, live. And Alvin, I got to know really well too. So
Yeah.
you know,
Oh, that's really cool.
yeah, it was.
That's
I've
really
been very
cool.
lucky. I've been really lucky.
And now, about the 60s, still going out the 60s, I would like to ask you about specifically February 1967, when you approached Walter Parasiter and Terry Kath with the proposal to form the big thing back then,
Yeah,
before Chicago Transit Authority.
yeah.
What inspired you? What sparked you to play with them, to form the band?
Well, I was in two other bands with them before them. You know, they kind of pulled me off of the streets of Chicago. But the first band that I was with them was called Jimmy Ford and the Executive, but it was a horn band. So, and the second band was just a cover band. It wasn't. I mean, Terry played bass, but he didn't play guitar yet. Walter and I knew how, and Walter was basically, he was getting his degree in clarinet. He was being groomed for the Chicago Symphony. So, you know, Walter was talking about, you know, not performing in clubs anymore. And Terry had gotten an offer to go to the West Coast with a band, a well-known Chicago rock band, and to play bass, right? So basically, I thought, geez, I'm losing my two musical soulmates, you know, my two musical brothers, and I got desperate, and I said to Walt, Walt, I don't want to lose you guys. Let's put together a horn band. Let's put a horn band together with all the best players in the city, you know. And he thought about it, and he said, let me talk. He talked to his wife. They had just gotten married, and she said, yeah, I support that. Yeah. And so Walt came back to me and said, I'm in. And then Terry, we pulled Terry aside, say, hey, Terry, why don't you just stay here and do this band with us and play guitar, you know, play guitar with us, you know? And Terry thought about it for like 5 minutes. You know, he was really itching to get out to the West Coast because the whole flower hippie thing was just happening. And, you know, the whole cultural thing was exploding out there. So he thought about it for like, I would say 2 minutes, a minute. I don't know. It was just almost, he said, yeah, I don't want to leave you guys. Yeah, I'm going to stay. I'll stay. I'm not going to take this gig, you know? So he didn't go out to the West Coast with the band called the Roving Kind, which was the producer that had offered him that job was also from Chicago, and his name was Jimmy Guercio, James William Guercio. He was he was a visionary, really bright, really smart man. He'd already had success with the Buckinghams. He was the bass player, music director, producer of Chad and Jeremy. So he'd had success, and he asked Terry, why didn't you take that gig? And he said, well, wait till you hear this band, you'll know why. So he came to one of our rehearsals, and then that was it. He said, you know, he signed us to a contract, and eventually brought us out to Los Angeles, where we, for first 6 months, we all lived in a 2-bedroom house and conceived and rehearsed the Chicago Transit Authority album. So, you know.
Yeah. And about that album, it was probably one of the fastest recordings in history. You record that in only 2 or 3 days. Set me straight, man. And what a repertoire! A double album, no Pro Tools, 8-track thing in the studio back then, you know, just real integration, complex arrangements.
Yeah.
How did you how do you guys get that? What do you remember about the sessions, you know?
Because they were fast and furious, but it was 2 weeks. It was 2 weeks.
Oh yeah.
It was recorded in 2 weeks. So I want to give you the correct facts. And it was just, hey, you know, it was like, I'd never really been in the studio. I mean, I'd done some demo work in Chicago, but really seriously in the studio, New York City, it's like, whoa, my eyes were like this, you know? I mean, I was and by the time we were done with this album, I was a pro, you know, in the studio. And I kind of, at first it scared the daylights out of me, because, you know, when you first hear yourself play in the studio and under a microscope, you know, you hear every little breathing and noise and grunt and I'm a grunter when I play. You know, a lot of drummers grunt. If you listen to their records, if you listen to our record, you can hear me grunting and moaning, and it's like, because I remember the first time we were listening to a playback, and everybody's going, "What's that sound?" And it sounded crazy because it was. And then they soloed my microphones, and it was me, you know, kind of moaning, and you know, it's and I still do that. So you know, it's part of it's part of who I am, but a lot of guys do, a lot of drummers do, you know. So it was just an amazing experience, and again, I've been very lucky. I've had a great life, so I've had a lot of wonderful experiences, and that is definitely one of them, you know.
And about that albums, you guys were one-off thing in terms of a band, because I think that no one, except like you, of course, had recorded the first 3 albums as double albums, you know.
Yeah, well, you know,
Something
our
really,
music songs, our songs were long, so you know, we needed. I remember our producer coming to us, and he said, "Hey, listen, you know, we need to put more music on this album. Your songs are so long, so we want to make it a double album." And he had to make a deal with the record company where we gave up part of our, wasn't a double royalty, you know. So, I mean, it really was. It was a really good thing to do because it allowed us, the band, to be who we were, allowed us to stretch out. And in those days, you know, it was something that you got rewarded for. Your uniqueness and stretching out and pushing and stretching, you know, pushing the barriers of rock and jazz and Latin. You know, we had so many different influences in our music. So, you know, yeah, the double album was a great idea, but that was our producer, Jim Gersio. You got to give him credit, you know?
yeah. And I'm a big fan of your drumming style on those
Thank you.
albums.
Thank
I
you.
place you in a similar shelf as another drummer which I loved, which was Michael Shreve from
Oh
Santana. I
yeah,
think you're
Michael.
probably
Yeah,
my
he's a
my
close friend. He's a great drummer. Yeah, I love Michael
you
Shreve.
guys you guys shared some things that I really appreciate because traditional grip at first,
Yeah,
because I'm a really a jazz aficionado, you know.
yeah,
I'm really like this style, this old school style of drumming.
yeah.
Traditional grip, there's a ferocity, there's a power, there's precision, there's a groove through, and extremely intricate parts, you know. There's sections of some songs, Travel Suite from the third album. There's a solo from you on there, I think Motorboat to Mars,
Yeah.
Ballad for a Growing Book, and on another other songs in the country. Plenty of great drum parts. And
Thank you.
drumming wise, I need to ask you, do you remember a specific song or a section that was a sort of complicated to nail, let's put that you had took a certain time to, oh, this drum part is somewhat intricate, too much busy for me, or something.
Well, that was the beauty of the being in the band. There was quite a few challenging sections, so to speak, where I would have to kind of fuse. I'd have to play in an odd time signature, like in introduction, Terry's introduction. One section's 19/8 time, you know, where I had to groove it, but yet play the odd time, and I became very adept at grooving odd time, you know, signatures. So, you know, there's a lot of them. I mean, you know, there's a song called "Poem for the People" where there's a middle section where it just
Yeah.
takes off, you know. But there's many passages at the end of the ballet for a girl in Buchanan, you know, that kind of bolero kind of, you know, feel and classical almost, you know. And then at the end, I do a 4 bar like Buddy Rich, Gene Krupa, Danny, in my own kind of, you know, drum fill that was a hit song. I mean, there's a lot of. It was a beautiful band. I was very lucky to be in that band. I mean, you know, and I was one of the architects, but I was still lucky. You know, I mean, it was a the music was it kind of as I was studying in Chicago at DePaul University privately, the band was kind of growing, you know, musically along with it, and I was able to kind of integrate some of the jazz. I mean, some of the jazz and more complicated stuff I was learning into the music, and that was kind of the beauty of the band, you know, especially that first album, first 2 albums, you know, and you know, third album as well. But the second album to me is like that's where the studio didn't intimidate me anymore. I welcomed it. I loved it. I loved the challenge. I love the palette. I love the canvas of what I could do and create, and you know, within the music. So it
Mhm.
was a, you know, it was a great run. I have, you know, nothing. I have mostly almost nothing but great memories with the band. You know.
Yep. We're talking about a lot of jazz, and I had said in the beginning of the interview that one of my favorite Chicago albums. Today is Chicago 7, and that album wasn't originally. Set me straight if I'm wrong. I really want to know about that. Wasn't originally planned as a double album, and it happened to be a double album because you guys had planned it at first as a really jazzy album with jazz instrumentals and whatever. And the first album of the ELP is a double set. Is basically jazz instrumentals, and there's a lot of you on there. Air, things like Air,
Yeah, Aaron, yeah, with Laudir and I, yeah. There was some wonderful jamming with Laudir and I. Yeah. Well,
Do you remember the recording of creation of that album,
Yeah, it was in Colorado. It was up in the mountains in the Caribou Ranch. And I remember Phil Ramone was our engineer, believe it or not. I mean, you couldn't, he mixed Chicago 7, and this is where him and I became really close friends. And I remember during the time we were doing that album, when we recorded it, we did our TV special, and I had my drums all set up, and I didn't have any dampening on them. In the studio, you used to have to put all kinds of, because so the drums wouldn't ring too much. And I remember I looked at Phil and I said, "What do you want me to do with my drums?" He said, "Don't worry, we'll record them just as they are." And he was like the first guy that, and you can hear that on that album. The drum sound is just really live and natural. But that's Phil Ramone, he was amazing. And we had, I've had the privilege, but the recording of that album, I don't remember whether it was we set out to do. I know we did Air and Double Sweet.
Italian from New York.
It had a good combination of really true jazz, right? Real bebop.
Mononucleosis.
Yeah, and then it had like some really good hits, like "Searching So Long," "Happy Man," "Call on Me."
Call on Me.
It's a really, and we do "Call on Me." We do "Searching." We goes in and out of our show, but I don't know if we'll do it in Brazil, but we have. That was a great record. Yeah, I agree with you. It's one of my fits. I have a few favorites, but it's definitely one of them. It's really a great record. I'm really proud of that.
Yeah. And you're talking about compositions, and you composed songs from Chicago. One of my some of them are my favorites. I love "Low Down," of course, which was the first one credit that you earned with Peter.
Yeah.
And specifically, I have to say that for me, my all-time favorite disco song is from you, which was "The Street Player" that you had played with David Wolinski. And man, I have to say, for me, that song features my all-time favorite horn arrangement.
Oh, it's
the horn arrangement of that track, the solo from Maynard Ferguson, and that song was based on a true story of you. It's autobiographical.
Yeah. I went to. We were working with Phil Ramone again, and I said I'd written the song with Hawk Walensky, and Rufus did a copy of it, but I thought let's do a disco. Let's do the best disco record ever made. Let's make and Ayrton's playing percussion along with Laudir and myself. All that percussion is live, and that's Ayrton, Laudir, and myself. But it's more them than me. They're the ones that are playing the really great stuff on it. And then there's Peter Cetera's vocal is just like wow. And then and Jimmy Panko's horn arrangement is amazing. I worked with him. I sat with him when he wrote that, and I really said, no, I like this, I like that, I like this, I like that. He really did. He did a beautiful arrangement. So it's a great record, and it's the funny story with Street Player is it was my biggest. I thought, oh God, I'm going to win a Grammy for this. Or I got way ahead of myself, and I think the man upstairs said, no, you need to. So it turned out to be the biggest bomb that Chicago ever had. The record company it was the end of the disco era, and the record company had put hundreds of thousands of dollars in videos and it just and disco got killed at that point. And I remember how depressed I was. Here I am. This is the best thing I've ever written. This was going to be my tour de force, and it got killed. And lo and behold, after I left the band, in 1998, I get a call, and the guy says, "Hey, Danny," he was in English. I don't want to do an English accent because I have a terrible one. So he said he had an English accent. He said, "Danny, our band, I'm the manager of the band over here called the Bucketheads, and they've sampled Street Player, and is breaking out in all the dance club." Well, they never got the clearance. They never got my permission. So immediately he said to me, he said, "Look, your songwriting partner agreed to sell the rights for $1,500." He said to me, "Are you going to go along with that?" I said, "Are you kidding me?" I said, "Do I look stupid?" Of course, so I basically got the gal. There's a lady who at that time represented took care, represented my catalog, my copyrights, and she negotiated with him. So I got a third of it. Hulk got a third of it, and it was the biggest dance hit of 1998, right? And then 10 years later, we get a call from Pitbull's office, and they said, "Well, Pitbull has sampled he sampled the sample that Street Player was on, and we need to get you. We want to get your okay on the arrangement." I said, "Tell them to go ahead and release it." And it was the biggest song, and it was the biggest hit in the world. So what turned out to be my biggest failure turned out to be my largest, most successful.
Yeah.
And so Street Player is a really great story that I tell a lot of artists, and I tell people, because you just don't, you don't give up. You don't, I was when it happened, I was really depressed. And I didn't write for a long time because, I thought this is my best work, and it got completely knocked into the ground. So Street Player turned out to be a great thing, and it still is today. Well, listen to the percussion. That's all live. That's a percussion table with Laudir and Airto walking around, running around, and just playing along with the track. It's really cool. I mean, listen to some of the stuff they're doing. I mean, it's brilliant. I mean, I can tell you, I know what Airto's playing. I know what Laudir was playing, and I played, and I played some stuff too. But it was just, how much fun. And we're running around the percussion table, just jamming with it,
Yeah. Yeah, that's really jamming. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's the real thing. That's different from overdubbing a lot of stuff or cutting the songs. It has a difference. And I would like to ask about you had said about the repertoire of CTA, and the repertoire covers many different phases from the band. That's really a good thing. And I would like to ask you, what are your personal favorite Chicago songs? Songs that you are currently playing within the band, overlooked, obscure material. Which ones?
Well, we don't play a lot of obscure material because the people want to hear the hits. So, we come to the realization we can play obscure material, but you got to, as an artist, you want to play the obscure material, but for the fans and for the people that paid the money, they want to hear the hits. So we play all of the hits from the '80s. We play a lot. The '80s is getting even more prominent because our audience is aging, and they're bringing in some of the younger, the ones who love the '80s. So we sold as many records in the '80s run as we did in the '70s. So, but listen, I love. We always pull a song or two out that we do, and we've done In the Country, we've done Poem for the People, we've done Introduction. It's the thing is it's hard because we had so many hits. I mean, we can do 2 hours of just hits, and that's basically, we have a female singer now, which is really, we're going to be coming to Brazil with her. She's phenomenal. She's a wonderful singer, and she brings a whole nother kind of flavor, energy to the band, and she's She's dynamic. She's an amazing singer. She's a pretty lady, but it's more. She's really super talented, and she interprets the Chicago stuff really well. She does a great job. I'm
Mhm.
really anxious to see. I believe the Brazilian audience is going to love her.
Yeah. What's her name? Sorry.
Sarah Nimitz. Sarah Nimitz.
Okay. Okay, perfect. And she's doing probably the most high tenor thing
Yeah,
like
she's doing the
Cetera
Sarah
parts,
songs.
you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's impossible.
Yeah, listen,
Only a female could replace
it's
that.
really hard to find people that do the Cetera songs really well. That's very hard to find. So
I like how you balance both eras and you include 80s material because I mean there's a lot of the hits in the 80s. You're the inspiration, Hot Say I'm Sorry, and Along Comes a Woman. And I found that curious that the band officially in that documentary now more than ever that Chicago had done in 2016 or 2007.
yeah, yeah.
They seems to want to diminish or forget that specific phase, you know, that
And
David Foster years. I don't know how they do that. This is
well,
strange.
it was while it was happening, there was a lot of problems because with David, some problems with David because the 70s side of Chicago wasn't. I mean, he acknowledged that we really kind of delved into it on the first Chicago 16, but Chicago 17, him and Peter really collaborated on some really wonderful songs, and it's just sometimes I brought David into the situation, so I have a different kind of the band. I
Mhm.
knew the band needed some new blood, new direction, and I brought David in. It was my idea to have him produce us and work with him, and I don't regret it at all. I mean, and even him and I even had a big falling out, but we're good friends now, and I acknowledge the '80s wouldn't have happened without Bill Champlin, without Bill Champlin and
Yeah,
David Foster, and it was all part of. It's a good chapter into the band. Now
yeah,
there are historians that like the '70s better, and because it was more jazzy, and I agree. There's as a drummer. I prefer but I when I play the '80s stuff, I play it with a lot of soul and a lot of feel, and we do a lot of the '80s. We really do. We do, and we do it really well. And the great thing about this band that I'm really proud of, and that we're all proud of, is we don't play with tracks. We don't use tracks. Our singers sing in tune. Our singers sing in, and sure, sometimes they may make a mistake, but you know what? It's real. We don't play with, we don't use any tracks, and that's kind of rare these days. Which, to be honest, I don't like. I don't like it when bands play with tracks. But I mean, I kind of get it where the older bands kind of need to, but
yeah.
because I play with younger guys, they don't. We don't need to, and the singers are all. We have good singers in the band, and they cover all the parts, and I mean, I think you'll see when you hear the band that it's very live, it's very natural, it's very powerful. It's like the original
Mhm.
Chicago. I mean, the drummer has to play with the click the whole time. I mean, there's it's very, you can do it, and drummers. There are guys that do it really well. I can do it, but I don't want to be honest with you. I mean, if I had to, I suppose I would, but there are certain things like maybe you need tracks, but there are some bands like they play with the whole show with tracks, background vocals and So, anyways, it is what it
Mhm.
is. We don't. All I can say is what people. There's a reason. It move. I think that this true spirit of the music. There's a lot more energy and there's a lot more dynamics.
Now I would like to ending our interview with a few quick fire questions to you.
Okay.
My first one is about Terry Kath. What's your best memory from him?
Well, Terry, there's many, but uh, God, yes, that's a really hard question to answer because we were together and so long. But I remember when I first met Terry, he was playing bass, and I'd never played with a bass player. I mean, I hadn't played with players like that, and I just remember how natural he was, and at ease he was. He was very unpretentious, and his guitar playing. If you look at Terry and I when we're playing in those early, you can see him leaning into me. We played off one another, and so he really he embodied the spirit of just jamming and playing off one another and locking and really locking together. And Peter was the same way. Peter, if you listen to our grooves, we're very locked. You can feel the band's locked. You can feel when we're not locked, but there's a great energy to even not being locked. You can hear and then coming back together. It's like a train car becoming uncoupled and then coming back together again. Like a magnet. Falling like a magnet coming loose from a magnet and then coming back together with it. It's but Terry, his playing was just playing behind his solo every night with 25 or 6 to 4 and I'm a Man and some of the other things, and he was such a great singer too. Terry was he didn't get because he's such a great player, people don't talk about his voice, like Peter's such a great singer that they don't talk about how good of a bass player he is. So Terry was just, his personality was just so relaxed and at ease and natural, and his playing was just, he was a really inspirational player. I mean, his rhythm guitar playing was amazing. That he was, besides his incredible solo chops. So I can't say enough great things about Terry. Yeah, we butted heads like it was a family. So we had we had a lot of arguments, but we were, at the end of the day, we always loved one another and respected one another.
Yeah. And your all-time favorite Chicago album?
I think Chicago 2. I like Chicago 7. Chicago 7 is right up there, but Chicago 2, and of course CTA, how can you, it's just groundbreaking, and the energy is like, it's unleashed. It's like there's the energy of CTA is like, it's like animals being let out of a cage, and sometimes, there are times when it's like, when it's unharnessed and it's unruly, but it's just, it was the first album. So I don't know this. I would say that the reason the second album is my favorite is because we we had arrived. We decided we had really gotten a vision of who we were. Me, at least for myself, and I think the rest of the band. But for myself, I could realize this is who I am as a drummer. And if you listen to that album, and 7 too, but there's a Chicago 11 that has a Take Me Back to Chicago and a little one, but I would say 2 and 7 are my two favorites.
Oh yeah. All-time favorite drumming album?
You mean by myself or by another drummer?
Could be for yourself and for another drummer.
I really like Buddy Rich's Channel One Suite.
Oh yeah.
But there's a lot of them. It's hard for me to, it's really hard for me to have a favorite because I like so many that, when you say, what's your favorite Chicago song? I go, Beginnings is up there, Introduction, then Call on Me. I love Call on Me. And then there's In the Country or Moving In. Moving In was like the first kind of big band swing thing we did. It's hard for me to have a favorite.
Oh yeah. And another a tune very drummer focused in terms of groove and rhythm that I love from Chicago is a tune called "A Hit" by Varese.
Oh yeah,
that song was.
That's a cool drum part. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the way I hit that the China cymbal with rivets. It's part of the sound,
Yeah. If you could have chosen to play with any jazz legend, what would it be? Buddy Rich too?
Well, like I said, I got to be. I wish I'd gotten to know. I never got to know Gene Krupa, and I regret that.
Oh,
I regret not getting to know
never.
Gene Krupa. I mean, I didn't know Tony Williams was a pretty quiet person. He wasn't real outgoing. But Alvin, I got really tight with Alvin. Lenny White, I got close with. I'm close with Steve Gadd, is a really good friend of mine. He lives in Vegas here with me now, and we see each other. We go to dinner once in a while. So
Jack DeJohnette, did you got to hit him?
met him, but I didn't get to know him. I love Jack DeJohnette. He's a
Oh, yeah.
wonderful player. What a wonderful player. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, all those guys, they're such great artists. That's the thing, is they're really, really, really great artists. And I just I feel fortunate and blessed to have, kind of spent time with them or gotten to know them. I've had a great life. What can I say?
Yeah. And final question, if you could define your drumming style in a word or a phrase, what would it be?
Rich.
Rich.
Very, rich with a lot of colors and coloration and movement and passion.
That's really good. Thank you very much, Danny. I will not take
Thank
your
you for the
time
wonderful
anymore.
interview. Yeah, I really thank you, and I really look forward to meeting you. Thank you so much.
It will be the first one of many others that we're gonna do in the near future. And thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks to Amaya.
So much, Danny.
Thank you, my
We're
friend. I
looking
really,
forward to
really,
see
really
you.
love talking to you.